When Pedro Martinez speaks, Red Sox Nation listens, and he's not too keen on what's going on in Beantown.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat a low in the way, you can't hit it. Know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walk it back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
That's right, and we're bringing it back to the bullpen like we do every week, Monday through Friday, on the Locked On MLB channel, on the YouTube station, and wherever you get your podcasts. Look, Mike Stanton and myself have been doing this for 3 seasons now. This is our first season with the #1 podcast network in America, and he brings not only 19 years on the mound, he also brings, him and I bring 2 decades on the mic. Look, we've got a plethora of experience, and we want to share that with you tonight. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to jump around the league, as they say, Mike.
Things going on left and right. We have a pitcher that set a milestone recently with 2,000 strikeouts. We have a future Hall of Famer coming back off the IL. But first, we're going to start with one of the best right-handed pitchers to ever walk on the mound, guy that I played with a little bit, played against a lot, in Pedro Martinez.
Yeah, Pedro Martinez, when he played, you know, he was never afraid to speak his mind. And even when Yankees fans thought they had him, he was like, well, you know, they would chant, "Who's your daddy?"
Yeah. And
he would do something. He'd say, "I guess that makes the Yankees my daddy." But
they beat him. They beat him, and they actually beat him. Listen, there were many matchups, you know, back when I was with the Yankees through the late 90s and early 2000s, you know, Pedro, you know, put up ridiculous numbers for any generation, but especially that generation that offense was through the chart. He was putting up video game numbers. He had video game stuff. And you know, he actually pitched very, very well against the Yankees, but the dude just simply couldn't beat us. I mean, it was pretty remarkable. Somebody would step up and shove to match everything that he was doing. There was one game, though. It was after I left. It was the early 2000s that, the Yankees actually beat him and beat him pretty good. And that's when he actually made the statement, "Yes, the Yankees are my daddy."
But, you know, even after, through his retirement, he doesn't necessarily go out there and try to make the headlines. He is at that point in his career, I guess, post-career, Hall of Famer. The guy knows his stuff. And when he has an opinion, especially about the Boston Red Sox, he speaks up, and he's not too fond of what has gone on in Boston this year, especially.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with his former battery mate in Jason Varitek, who the 7 years that he was in Boston, Varitek was the catcher, and they actually were very close, and they continue to be very close. And he was actually a big fan and a good friend with Alex Cora also, which I'm sure the rest of the coaching staff that got fired, he was you know, on good terms with those people too. And you know, Pedro, you're right. Pedro has no qualms in just saying, you know, whatever comes to his mind, speaking his opinion. And he was not happy with how all these things went about. You know, he wasn't happy with the timing of it. He wasn't happy with when it happened and how it happened. And, you know, and Pedro is going to speak his mind. You know, he was in Boston, and this, you know, Pedro always has a platform to speak his mind, but he was actually asked, he was in Boston. They were having a celebration, a 125th anniversary of the franchise's very first home game. And pretty cool. The ceremony included Pedro Martinez, Carl Yastrzemski, Wade Boggs, Carlton Fisk, David Ortiz, Jim Rice. I mean, all Hall of Famers that are still with us that were Red Sox, and they were all there. And that's when the question was asked, well, Pedro, how do you feel about what's happening in Boston with this 2026 team?
Yeah, and I mean, someone like that has earned a right to say something. And I don't think, look, I think Chad Tracy there is a lot to be said about how he's kind of doing a lot to keep things going in the right direction, calming the team down, because you can really, after what happened, it could be almost disastrous to where it really sends things off the rail. And that's his job, to keep the clubhouse focused on what their objective is, winning ball games.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's in a no-win situation, because you're talking about a veteran team. You're talking about a guy that's come in that's never managed before. Yes, he's been in the organization, so he knows these guys. He's probably was with them in spring training, and has a rapport with them. But it's different when you bring a guy in, especially early in the season, out of nowhere, and you're replacing a manager that already has a great rapport with the whole team, is a World Series championship manager, with the team that he's with. So it's a little different situation for Chad. And I think Chad has done a good job of kind of calming things down. But listen, it's an impossible job. I mean, come into a situation like this, all the players are going to be ticked off, not at Chad, but just at the situation. But it's all going to fall on Chad's shoulders. And then the rest of the coaching staff also. That's the crazy thing, is the way Craig Breslow did this really makes you scratch your head, because there was 6 people fired. There were 6 coaches. And Jason Varitek, who was kind of a special assistant type guy, he's being reassigned. Which by the way, Pedro actually mentioned this also. There hasn't been a reassignment yet. They haven't figured out where exactly they want Jason Varitek in the organization. So Pedro had no problem. Now, he wasn't angry about it. He didn't yell and scream. He didn't say anything, overly controversial, except, some of the stuff that, we're all thinking like, what is going on here? Why would you do this at this particular time?
Right. And I've noticed too, a lot of players that have a longer history with the Red Sox, they tend to stay pretty die-in-the-wool Red Sox guys. I mean, they are loyal to that brand. And that city, you played there. You played both in New York and Boston.
Twice.
And and you know what those fans are like and how dedicated they are.
Oh, they're hardcore. There's no bad. I mean, fan is short for fanatic, and both of those franchise have fanatic fan bases. There's no doubt about it. And the Red Sox, it's a little bit different than when I played, especially when I was there for the year the trade deadline 95 to trade deadline 96. The Red Sox hadn't won a World Series, and they were always kind of the stepchild to the Yankees, and the fan base was ticked off about that seemingly every single day. It's a little different now because they have won a couple World Series and expectations are much, much, much higher. The fan bases back then in the 90s, they were hardcore, but they had never tasted the victory of winning a World Series or even beating the Yankees in big games. And so it's a little different now that they have won some World Series. They have had some success, and now they expect it. I mean, you see that with every fan base that has a run. You get spoiled very, very quickly.
It's funny you mentioned that, because they had that Fever Pitch movie where Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore, and it was originally written as the Red Sox lose again. The Red Sox break his heart, and he realizes that he loves this woman more than he loves the Red Sox. Well, in the midst of them going down 3-0, and they come back and win, and they end up winning, and they had to rerun the end of the movie and redo the script. So the Red Sox were flipping movie scripts in the midst of making their own movie, So that is just one of my all-time favorite movies, especially knowing that history behind it. Our friend Sully over at Locked on MLB is a huge Boston fan, grew up a massive Boston fan, was actually did a little cameo on the little 2004 World Series thing. So, people that are connected to that franchise are surely connected.
Yeah, one of the guys I worked with, years and years and years on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM, Jeff Joyce, same thing. He's from Boston, huge Boston fan. He kind of, because he covers the whole league, he kind of curbs it, but it's there. And you can tell he's an old-time Red Sox fan because a lot of times there's negativity built around it because that's how he grew up, with the Red Sox always losing.
Right, exactly. We're going to move on in our next segment. We're going to talk about the Patrick Bailey trade and how what implications that has for the Giants. And then Mookie Betts returns to the Dodgers. And I promise you, Dodgers Nation is really happy about this. Well, thank y'all for tuning in to Back to the Bullpen. I want to tell you about our friends at Rocket Money. Let me tell you, Rocket Money, I've got it right here on my phone. It is a budgeting app. It is a financial tool. It is a way for you to see where your money's going. And literally just this last week, I found some subscriptions that I had that I didn't know that were coming out of my account. Well, you know what? I canceled those bad boys. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot. It helps you cancel them just in a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money's going. Because look, if you don't run your budget's going to run you. And you can set budgets, set alerts, and stay on top of everything. Upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. See, look, I'll tell you this. When I was going through driver's ed, my driver's ed instructor said, Brett does not pay attention to detail. Well, you know what? Rocket Money wasn't invented at that point. Now I have this as a personal finance app. It helps me cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors my spending, and helps lower my bills. That can do the same for you. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And make sure you join the Everydayer Club if you want to get ad-free episodes and join the members-only Discord with myself and others across the country. You need to go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. Go there and join today.
Welcome back to the Bullpen, presented by Locked On Network. So where we're going now is a very early season trade by Buster Posey and the San Francisco Giants. He's kind of getting a reputation for doing this. Last year, he brought on over $250 million of Rafael Devers money to try and bolster that offense. Well, that hasn't really done much because it's still not an offense that does a whole lot. And he made a big trade, trading away his two-time Gold Glove winning catcher in Patrick Bailey.
Yeah, this is something that you don't often see. Look, I'm of the mindset that you have a catcher not for his offense. You have a catcher there for what he does defensively. Now, it wasn't his defense, okay, that was the problem. Because even, Buster Posey said defense alone isn't enough anymore. And that's a massive statement coming from Buster Posey, a former catcher, a all-star catcher, who's now president of their baseball operations. And they felt like, though, that his offense was so bad that they couldn't ignore it. And they've got a defensive catcher who's got those tools. But were there issues with the pitching staff as well? What was the deeper seated problem, do you think?
Okay, so the deepest problem for the Giants is that they're looking for offense from the catching position. And I've always said that your catcher, his number one job is working the pitching staff. It is not offense. That's number two. Right now, when he was traded, Patrick was hitting 146 with an OPS of 396. Now that's an OPS, not an on-base percentage. That was on-base plus slugging. So not any power whatsoever. there was a conversation between Buster Posey and Patrick, in spring training, and the kind of the focus of this conversation was, he wanted Patrick, he being Buster, he wanted Patrick to really focus on the responsibility of being a leader of the staff, not just so he won Gold Gloves. He's very, very good at receiving the ball, very good at pitch framing. He also has a rocket for an arm. He throws a lot of guys out. But there's been some question about, pitch selection, him working the pitching staff and stuff like that. And I don't think Buster really liked the way, he really didn't take charge of the pitching staff. There were a couple examples of him throwing the same pitch multiple times, ending up with base hits or even extra base hits. So I didn't think that Buster Posey was a huge Patrick Bailey fan anyway. So, and then with him getting off to the slow start offensively this year, it just gave him the opportunity. The interesting thing is he got traded for a tugboat. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's right. Matt Tugboat Wilkinson.
Yeah.
They say he's a legitimate pitching prospect. On top of this prospect, number 84 overall. So he's a top 100 prospect. They also got a competitive balance round A pick, which is the number 29th overall.
29th, yeah.
Yeah, this draft this year is supposedly loaded with talent. So the Giants feel like they got the better of this deal.
They did, and you know what? So who is the Tugboat? I mean, he's a left-handed pitcher. He doesn't throw overly hard. He's got high spin rate. He's put up some pretty crazy numbers. Let's see, where is it? 2024, his breakout season, he was 8-6 with a 1.9 ERA. Listen to this: 174 strikeouts in less than 119 innings. So even though this dude isn't out there, pumping high 90s, he's got the high spin rate. He's got, he's got some stuff to get swing and miss. Now that was in A ball, but he's been very good in AAA, in the higher A's also, in AA and AAA. So, this is a legitimate arm, whether he's going to be in the rotation, whether he has a chance of being a short reliever, whatever it is. And then what does, one of the problems that the Guardians were having, same thing, not a big offensive team. And what they ended up doing is they ended up sending down, who do they send down? Bo Naylor.
They send down Bo Naylor because he's not hitting worth a flip right now.
143, 2 home runs. I mean, it's very similar numbers to Patrick Bailey, but what they do get in Patrick Bailey over Bo Naylor is a big defensive upgrade. So, both teams are looking for upgrades in their catching position. The Giants are looking for more offense and more leadership, and the Cleveland Indians were looking for, a better defensive catcher. So, it looks like right now this may work out for both sides. We'll have to just wait and see. That's everyone loves to put grades on trades, but sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what grade a certain team is making on any kind of trades.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to get into it a little bit more deeper, but just kind of start the conversation with Mookie Betts returning.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dodgers, Mike, no offense, but they don't really need any help. But it sure is nice to have your all-star future Hall of Fame position player out there.
And your shortstop. Your starting shortstop.
There you go, starting shortstop for the Dodgers. Look, bringing him back, getting him off the IL could be a boost that they didn't realize they needed. Give these other guys a rest and let him get in there and do his thing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Shohei here in a few minutes, but Shohei has been struggling offensively, and so they've said they're not going to move Shohei out of the leadoff spot. But listen, future Hall of Famer, former MVP, he's your starting shortstop. Obviously, that's a great situation to get that dude back on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can get Mookie Betts hot, you could easily put him in the leadoff spot. I mean, heck, when you got Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, and Tucker as your top four, and then you follow it with Smith, Muncy, Pages, and Teoscar Hernandez. I mean,
Yeah.
and then Hai-Sung Kim. No disrespect to him, but that's a pretty strong lineup. But we'll hit on this in a little bit more detail, and then we'll talk about Kevin Gausman. And also get to Nathan Eovaldi. He sounds like he's going to miss his next start. All right, everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in to Back to the Bullpen. I want to tell you about our friends at Kalshi. Look, you want to talk about markets that are moving. I'm going to tell you that if you take a look at the markets, what I love about this is you are trading with your peers. It is, you can buy in and buy out anytime you want to, okay? And I'm going to tell you about the Seattle versus Houston game tonight on May 12th. Seattle right now sits at 58% buy-in. So if you put $100 on Seattle, you would get a payout of $164. If you put $100 on Houston, you would get a payout of $228. And what's cool is with Kalshi, you can basically buy into just about any event, whether it's sports, whether it's politics. I mean, anything you go to for a limited time. Download the Kalshi app, use the code Locked On to get $10 when you trade $10. Trade in and out of really cool spots, great opportunities. Kalshi, it's where it's at.
Welcome back to the Bullpen, presented by the Locked On Network. So we're gonna hit some more stuff around the league. We're gonna start off. We already discussed it a little bit about Mookie Betts, what he can mean to a Dodgers team that's already playing very good baseball. Not quite as good. They're not running away from the division like some people thought that they might. Still playing very good baseball. They're actually tied. Actually, it says they're one game back. No, they're tied with the San Diego Padres at 24-16. So the Padres are surprising some people, I think. But the Dodgers are right where you would expect them to be, at the top of the division, even though they have lost 2 in a row now. But Mookie Betts, this is one of those situations. The rich just keep getting richer. He's coming back from injury. It's good to see him back in there, but probably not real happy are the other National League pitchers that have to face this Dodgers lineup with Mookie back in it.
Yeah, definitely a murderer's row. But, they say the best counter to a good offense is a solid pitching front, and Kevin Gausman has been one of those guys. Throughout his career has been a big strikeout guy, and he reached 2,000 strikeouts. He's the 6th active pitcher to reach the 2,000 strikeout plateau. And he basically is a fastball up, splitter down guy, and just is really one of the most dependable strikeout starters in all of baseball. And I mean, if we can take the city that we live near in Houston, what is the Astros' biggest issue? It's walks and pitchers not being able to throw strikes.
Sure.
When you have a Kevin Gausman, when you have someone like this on the mound, you're able to know what you're getting when he starts a game.
Yeah, he's really kind of reinvented himself. He's always had the good fastball. He's got a little bit of a funky delivery, comes way over the top, a really steep angle. The split finger fastball has been devastating for him here in his career. The pitchers that he's behind, listen to the who's who of pitching. Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Chris Sale, Garrett Cole, Yu Darvish. That is quite a list of pitchers and a lot of strikeouts in that list. So, and 2 of those guys are over 3,000 strikeouts. And actually, Max Scherzer is only one from 3,500. Verlander's already gone over 3,500. So yeah, Gausman, quite an achievement. I mean, he's been around for 14 years. He's in his 14th season, and he did it exactly the way he when he got the 2000 strikeout. There was a pause in the game. He tipped his cap. He kind of looked around and said thank you, and let's get back to work. That's exactly what you would expect from Kevin Gausman.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, he basically came out at the age of 21. He was basically like a pitching, I guess, prodigy, you could say. And he's made adjustments over time. He's evolved. He's figured out how to maximize it. Kevin Cash actually said the last 5 or 6 years, Gausman's consistency stacks up with just about anybody in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, look, 30-plus starts every year in today's game is rare air. Now, you say 30-plus starts back then, someone's saying, wait, why aren't you starting more games? Because now the starts are a lot fewer. You don't have starters throwing as many innings.
Right.
And so getting to the 2,000 strikeout plateau is huge. The 3,000 strikeout plateau is the one that's really tough to get to because of the way the game has evolved.
Well, I mean, think about all the strikeouts that he's had in 14 seasons, and now he just got to 2,000. I mean, that's why 3,000 is such a huge number, and it's a milestone that usually means Hall of Famer. Not always, but it usually means Hall of Famer. He's actually been a complete and total bargain. Going into the 2022 season, he signed a 5-year deal with the Toronto Blue Jays, 5 years, $110 million. So even though that's a great payday, I mean, look at what the guys are making now. I mean, he's been a bargain.
Yeah, definitely he has. And, if the Blue Jays are going to be successful, it's going to be someone like Kevin Gausman who's going to help lead the way with that pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a veteran like that that's been through it, whether it's him, whether it's Scherzer, whether it's Verlander, any of these guys you mentioned, veteran pitchers, they just do things differently. And I've said this before. I loved when Verlander was in Houston, especially when he was in between games, because he worked in the outfield almost like he was still trying to make the big league roster, doing drills and just doing the basic stuff to keep his body in tune. Now, talking about someone who's been a very good pitcher through his career, but has struggled with injuries lately is Nathan Eovaldi. He is predicted to miss his next start, which was going to be against Houston. Houston was going to be facing 3 of their toughest pitchers, and Eovaldi's probably going to miss this one, but we don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, we haven't got a report. They say that he had some imaging done, and they haven't read the imaging. That sounds a little shady to me, but who am I to point fingers? He said he woke up and his side was sore. Now, they didn't say oblique, they didn't say intercostal, just said side. He went for imaging during the day, and they haven't gotten the results, or they haven't told anyone the results yet. But Skip Shoemaker, the manager of the Rangers, actually said at this point in the season, there's no reason to send him out there when we don't know what the injury is. If this was September and they were in line for a pennant or something like that, Eovaldi would have taken the ball, because this guy is one of the big bulldogs of this generation. He has had injury issues in the past, but he's been pretty healthy as of late. As he's gotten older, he's figured out what his body needs to get on the mound consistently. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed. I'm a big fan of Nate. Start off, he's a Texan. He's from the place I went to college. It's just south of Houston and Alvin. So big fan of his. I love the Bulldog. I love the tenacity, and we'll just have to wait and see if this is a real injury, or if this is just one of those things that's just going to cost him a few days.
Yeah, definitely. No, I do remember hearing stories about him when he came out. I especially remember whenever he won the World Series with the Red Sox. That was his first World Series. Just a great local story for for the Houston area. I mean, the Rangers are at 19-22, but they are in the very weak American League West. I mean, we still only have one team in that division that's above 500. And Mike, if you would have told me that at this point in the season, 40 games in, that the Athletics would be leading the division, the Astros would be dead last, I would say, nah, maybe you got that flipped, because the Athletics aren't supposed to be that good. And they're playing a little bit over their skis. But you know what? As long as you keep winning, you don't have to answer other than say, look at the scoreboard.
Well, the data can say all it wants. The only one that really matters is what your win and loss record is. And right now, yeah, they're 2 games over 500, but they're the only ones that are over 500. Seattle's in second, 2 games under at 20-22. So, you still got a whole bunch of baseball to be played. But, as of right now, the Athletics can say, yeah, we're leading the division. We're the number 1 team in this division. It isn't saying a whole lot because it's not a great division. But bottom line is, the game that means absolutely nothing. If the playoffs started today, the Athletics would be the divisional winner.
That's right. West Sacramento would have a playoff game. That will be interesting. The first time a playoff game is played, I think, in a minor league ballpark, I would think. I don't know that that's ever been done before. Yeah. Well, hey, this has been a great show, Mike. We're gonna bid a fond farewell to our audience, but thank you all for tuning in. I want to tell you to make sure you make Back to the Bullpen your first listen. Make Locked On MLB your second listen. Check out the Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. Come back tomorrow. We'll have more news and notes from around the league. Your favorite teams, your home run heroes will be talked about right here from myself and Mike. If you never miss an episode, grab that Everydayer Club, and make sure, for those of y'all on video, you check out the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel on audio. Make your second listen. Check out Locked On MLB. Check out Locked On Astros. Whoever your team is, go find their show and check out their host, because we do a phenomenal job here. Mike, it's a great show. And you know what? Like I always say, play ball.
Adios.